Hello, everybody. Just in case that there are people from outside, McCormick, my name is Julio Tino. I'm the Dean of the McCormick School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. So I want to welcome all of you to one of the presentations in the One McCormick Series. And we're going to focus on student groups. I have said in the past, and I'll repeat again, that McCormick is a network of interacting parts. It's important to be aware of what's going on in this network. And each of these nodes may contain things that are extremely valuable to the student experience. In this case, the nodes that we're going to be talking about are student groups. Many people, once they finish their education with us, is the part that they will remember the most of their experience in McCormick. And we are blessed that student groups have had a seemingly unending succession of excellent leadership, and that they are run by someone very able within my team, which is Ellen Worsdall. And the consequence of this is that student groups are an integral part of the culture of McCormick. It's how students remain connected, and this is especially true in the times that we're living in during the pandemic, and is super important for students to feel that they are part of a community that allows them to be integrated with a larger network of McCormick. With that being said, I'm going to give the Zoom screen to Ellen Worsdall, who will introduce the panelists for this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dino Tino. I'm going to share my screen as we get started. I'm very happy to be here today with all of you. Before I get started with the presentation, I just have a few housekeeping items to review. This seminar will include a presentation from me, followed by Q&A with two of our student leaders. If you'd like to ask a question, please post it to the Q&A, which is a feature you can find at the bottom of your screen. And I also just want to let you know that today's session is being recorded. Dino Tino invited me here today to talk about how student organizations have been navigating the pandemic and adapting their activities to continue to build community among McCormick undergraduates. I oversee 28 student-led organizations here in McCormick, provide leadership development for the executive board members of those organizations, and I serve as the primary advisor for 5 student organizations. I'm going to get started by providing an overview of the student organization infrastructure here in McCormick, and then describe how student groups have navigated the key challenges presented by the pandemic. Then I will be joined by Daniel Lopez from our Formula Racing team and Bill Yen from our student chapter of Engineers for a Sustainable World, who will be available to answer any questions you have so you can hear directly from our student leaders. The reason Dino Tino wanted me to talk about student organizations today is because they are playing a key role in supporting student well-being and combating feelings of isolation during the pandemic. As you may recall, during the most recent One McCormick presentation, Professors Jill Wilson and Marita Pohl did a fantastic job sharing their mental health allies and responding to students in distress programs. Both the national student surveys and Northwestern specific survey they shared confirmed that many of our college students were dealing with mental health challenges prior to the pandemic. I don't think it would surprise anyone that the challenges students are facing have been made worse by the pandemic. I was really struck by the number of students who are experiencing intense feelings of isolation. This jumped out to me because it matches what I'm hearing from our students over the past year. As some of you may know, I'm not an engineer. My training is in student development, which is a field within higher education that focuses on the integration of academic learning with ways students grow and develop over the course of their undergraduate experience. The isolation we are currently seeing is a particular concern for student development because it can disrupt a student's learning as well as their personal well-being and transition into adulthood. Student organizations at McCormick have been designed to support student involvement and connections within McCormick, which is essentially the opposite of isolation. And research across higher education settings have demonstrated that student involvement is an essential factor, in academic success. Student involvement refers to students showing up and participating in classes, research, study session, as well as extracurricular activities like intramural competitions and concerts, and co-curricular activities like student groups. But most importantly, it refers to a student's psychosocial engagement. So it's not just that students are showing up and doing things that they are engaged in, but they're doing things in ways that are meaningful to them. The psychosocial aspect of student involvement helps to combat feelings of isolation. And higher education and higher levels of student involvement have been associated with stronger academic achievement, student satisfaction with college, and persistence towards graduation. Student involvement hinges on a student's sense of belonging and feeling like they matter. So belonging refers to students feeling supported, connected, and valued by the campus community. And mattering means that students feel others are invested in their success and depend on them. McCormick student organizations are set up to foster a sense of belonging and mattering in several ways. First, the organizations are entirely student-run. Unlike most aspects of campus life that are designed and led by faculty or staff, students decide what groups they feel are important to have, organize those groups, and assume all of the leadership roles. This means that the organization truly belongs to its members and their participation fundamentally matters to the ongoing success of the group. Second, the activities within each organization align with students' professional interests, their career goals, and often particular social or environmental issues they care about. This deepens the sense of belonging students because student organizations directly reflect their members' priorities, talents, and values. And third, McCormick student organizations have been set up to forge connections beyond campus. For example, some organizations are associated with national professional engineering organizations. Others have outreach activities that contribute to local, national, or global causes. This deepens a student's feeling of belonging and that their involvement really matters because their role as a McCormick student connects them to these larger communities, and those communities in turn are relying on them. Over the past 10 years, McCormick has invested in a robust approach to student organizations, but these student organizations had all been structured for on-campus undergraduate students. When the COVID-19 pandemic emerged last year, it threatened to disrupt this important pathway for student involvement. In particular, the pandemic presented challenges to student organizations in recruiting and onboarding new members, continuing their core activities, and implementing their outreach efforts. The good news is that our student organizations have had a lot of success in navigating these challenges. So let's look at just a few examples. Our student groups typically recruit new members at our McCormick Students Activity Fair during Wildcat Welcome. Obviously, they didn't have this opportunity this past year, so we hosted a virtual activities fair this past winter quarter. This is a photo of the lobby our participants saw when they signed in to attend the event. The tiles that you see are the individual booths for each organization. If a participant was interested in learning more about a group, they could enter the booth and choose to do either a live chat or a video call with a current exec member. We had 98 student leaders participate in this event, representing 23 organizations. As with any event, there were some successes and challenges. One group had 17 new members join their organization. However, other groups had just a few. From this, we learned that we need to use multiple methods when trying to reach students. One of the groups that had limited attendance reached out to their faculty advisor, who then made in-class announcements. Shortly after those announcements, 20 new students reached out to learn how to become members. So this really showed us the importance of broadcasting opportunities as widely as possible. Once you obtain new members, a group's next step is to figure out a way to successfully onboard them. Onboarding helps to welcome new members so they can build connections, develop the skills they need to participate, and feel like they belong. It plays a very important role in new member retention. We've seen a lot of innovative ways that student organizations have approached onboarding. Our robotics club designed a workshop and mailed each new member a workshop guide with step-by-step instructions and a materials kit. These were sent across the United States as well as internationally to Canada, India, China, Russia, and North Macedonia. New members had weekly milestones to reach, and there were weekly Zoom drop-ins if students had questions or wanted some advice. Now, our blockchain group learned that Zoom fatigue is real. Attendance at their one-time guest speaker sessions started to drop off significantly, especially among new members. So the organization pivoted this past fall quarter to project-centered teams to meet weekly, as well as a reading group, which allowed members to learn more about blockchain and to get to know other members in a more casual way. Once student organizations have recruited and onboarded members, they turn their attention to their activities. A main issue student organizations face is that they have to figure out the balance between remote and in-person activities, especially when public health guidelines are fluctuating. Having more students back on campus has made it even more important that safety protocols are followed. While some organizations' activities may have had an easier time translating to the remote experience, that doesn't always guarantee success. For example, several departmental groups have seen much lower levels of engagement. Historically, these groups would host guest speakers and provide food, which really helped to attract their members, which so much of our members' students' time being spent online, we've seen a significant drop in attendance when they host speakers virtually. Some groups have had the opportunity to reinvent themselves and how they operate in the remote setting and have had success. Engineers for a Sustainable World started an aquaponics project last spring quarter. Because of the restrictions caused by the pandemic, the organization actually altered their project, so it is now an auto aquaponics project. The goal of the project is to build a fully automated aquaponics system in the ESW office that can grow plants unattended for 1 month and be monitored and controlled remotely. Other organizations were not able to work remotely, such as our vehicle teams. Baja, Formula, and NU Solar did a great job creating safety plans once campus became more accessible in November. To keep members engaged, they extended their design period during the fall. Now, building a vehicle is a significant undertaking in the best of times. Trying to do it while navigating a pandemic that restricts access to the space you need to accomplish this goal is even more daunting. Yet our teams were able to adapt and move forward. The Formula team recently conducted their first test drive of the vehicle, and it comes only 1 week after their earliest first drive in team history, despite having an entire quarter less of in-person manufacturing. Pre-pandemic, many of our student organizations conducted outreach activities both within the local community and internationally. As you can imagine, this has been seriously disruptive because we cannot hold in-person events, and travel has been temporarily suspended by the university due to COVID. One exciting outreach success story we have had is our Global Brigades group. They were supposed to travel last year over spring break to Honduras to work on a clean drinking water system, but they had to cancel it. They were hoping to be able to travel this spring quarter, but clearly they couldn't. The team did not want to cancel for 2 years in a row, so they redesigned their program and called it a TeleBrigade and ran the entire project remotely. The team created the design for the project and is working with in-country engineers to implement the plan. A benefit that they have realized is that more McCormick students can get involved since they not have to pay for their individual travel expenses. And the project has been spread over a longer period of time instead of just 1 week of spring break. Another success was Career Day for Girls. Career Day was the last large in-person outreach event we held in February of 2020. The Society of Women Engineers who run Career Day did not want to cancel this year, so they redesigned it as an interactive online event. It still served 6th through 12th graders, but ran as 2 separate virtual programs, one for junior high students and the other for high school students. A combined total of 115 students registered for the 2 events. Our student leaders are amazing individuals, and it is important to point out that they're all volunteers. Their achievements, especially this past year, are a real testament to the initiative and passion our students have for their organizations. And their leadership is really making a difference in building community, fostering student involvement, and combating feelings of isolation among McCormick students. Given the extraordinary difficulties that students are navigating, it is really inspiring to seeing them apply their problem-solving skills to the current realities and achieving success. Joining me for the next portion of my presentation are 2 student leaders, Daniel Lopez, the chief engineer from our Formula Racing team, and Bill Yen, project manager of ESW's Auto Aquaponics team and the current co-president of ESW. They are here so you can hear directly from student leaders who have been successful in adapting their organizations to navigate the pandemic. So please go ahead and put your questions in the Q&A. I'm going to stop my share. And I have a question just to get the conversation started. Obviously, I have been really, really impressed with the creativity and the problem solving your teams have shown. From the outside, everything looked like the adjustments went really, really well. Can you guys take some time to just think about and share some of the challenges that you had to work through that maybe aren't so obvious to us on the outside? And Bill, I'm going to have you go first.
Yeah, that's a great question. So since my project group was conceptualized over the pandemic, we found it really difficult to prototype our ideas and test if they work or not, because most of us were not on campus. And that's kind of something we almost took for granted when we were taking DTC in an in-person time. So like over a fall quarter, we wanted to build a water monitoring station with sensors coming out in a water-resistant box. So because we don't have access to the shop and the mechatronics lab, we couldn't just like all go to one place and work on it like what we would normally do. So instead, we found a way to kind of build all the pieces of the box remotely and have someone build the circuit and someone make the CAD model. And then we sent them all to one person to assemble it. And that in the process kind of helped us document everything we did. And I think really helped us catch some error on the way too.
Very cool. Very cool. Daniel, can you share?
Yeah, so for us along the same vein, I guess, is interactions have been really difficult. On a normal year, we'd be basically spending every Wednesday and Saturday in the Ford building. So a lot of our sub teams would just be able to, walk up and talk to each other and figure out what's going where. Whereas this year, most of the sub teams are separated into their own Zoom calls. So it's just taken a lot of time and energy on our exec board's part to be able to facilitate a lot of these interactions, like thinking ahead and saying this person and this person need to hop in a Zoom call really quick and figure out this one interaction to make sure that everything comes together in a cohesive way.
Very good. One of the questions that has come up from our audience is that student organizations have faculty advisors, and we're curious on how their service has been affected by the pandemic. And so Daniel, I know that your team has a number of different advisors. Has the pandemic influenced or impacted your relationship with them?
No, not particularly, to be honest. I know our primary advisor, Professor Beltran, is normally, hands off. He lets us mostly run ourselves, which is, what we want. But, whenever we need his help, whenever we need Ellen's help or Sabrina, they're all willing to sit down, have a quick Zoom call about, whatever issues we're having and be able to help us through whatever issues that we need. So that's been really great to have, especially during this time.
Bill, has it impacted your group?
No, I would say I agree with Daniel. Like our faculty advisor is Professor Harold Kong, and he's been super responsive every time we need to reach out to him. So that really hasn't affected us too much.
Excellent. And are there any new best practices that you find that your groups may continue doing after the pandemic? And I'm going to give this one first to, I'm going to go back to Bill.
Yeah, for sure. There are a lot of them. I think one of them is that before the pandemic, we used to do a lot of project work together. Like we would do like building, we would do design work together. And now we kind of allocated those things that can be done individually outside of our meeting times. Almost like kind of how DTC classes are structured. Like students would do their own tasks at home and they would come and present their findings. And I thought that like it worked really well and we're able to kind of go through a lot more progress in that 1 hour Zoom meeting time. And that's something we definitely want to keep.
How about for you, Daniel?
Yeah, so I personally value in-person, face-to-face interactions a lot. So this pandemic has been, a really hard adjustment, especially for me, being able to see who and talk to who I need to. But I think actually Zoom has been a pretty helpful tool, surprisingly, to me at least. And whatever becomes available to us in the future, Zoom, Google Meet, whatever, I think would benefit us greatly, because a lot of our meetings on a normal year, we would meet in the Ford building, we'd sit down in the fishbowl DTC room, breakout room, and have a conversation. But what I found is Zoom has almost been as effective, if not more effective, because you're less likely to be late. It's just you open up your laptop and you're there. You don't have to wait for people to walk to the Ford building. So I think to a certain degree, we'll probably keep that in the future.
That's great. We have no excuses to not be timely now. What do you find is the most meaningful aspect of being a part of a student organization, especially during a pandemic? And we'll pivot this one to Bill.
Yeah, I think what has been most helpful to me was that it kind of gives me a reason to like reach out and talk to people. I don't think I would have had as much like interaction as I had right now if I weren't running a student group. And I think a lot of, especially the freshmen in my group, really appreciated kind of this opportunity to get to know upperclassmen and not only learning about our project and like the technology that go behind it, but also like get more insight on what it's like being a student at Northwestern.
Daniel, do you have any thoughts on that too?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Bill. I'd say community is a really big one. And then even just more than that, just something to do. I think, being in quarantine for months, almost a full year, just being in my apartment, got a little boring. So even on a normal year, I think student groups are a great way to just have something to always be doing. And I always love that. And I'm glad that it was able to continue over the pandemic.
Awesome. And it seems like there's a few first year students that are are watching us. And so what advice would you have to a rising sophomore who maybe feels like they might have missed out on the recruiting opportunities to connect with the organizations, and just with the disruptions that remote life has caused us this year? Do you have any advice that you would give to them as they think about organizations they can get involved in, or are interested in kind of expanding their friend groups? And so since Daniel's he's a senior and he'll be leaving us soon, so I feel like you might be well suited to kind of speak to this.
Yeah, one thing I know from Formula, and then a lot of the other build teams at least, is that it's really never too late to join. There's always something going on. There's always something to do. I can speak, but building a car takes a lot of time and energy. So more hands is always helpful. So at least speaking for the build teams, it's never a bad time to join. We've had quite a few people actually join during winter and even spring quarter who have integrated into the team just as people who came in at the beginning of the year.
And Bill, since you're a sophomore, sorry, do you have any advice on, like, do you find, because you still have you have more time to spend in McCormick, are there any other organizations that you might be interested in becoming involved with?
I've actually thought that the robotics club is really cool. So maybe I'll look into that when I have more time. But yeah, like kind of going back to the same question Daniel was answering, I found like if you're a sophomore, like if you reach out to student leaders, you usually have a lot of success because like student leaders, like speaking for myself, like I love talking to people about my project. If you send me an email about like what we do, I will respond. And don't feel intimidated if you don't necessarily have like the background knowledge to go into what you want to do, because chances are whoever's there can teach you.
And do you guys have any advice for other student leaders or other organizations that maybe they don't build, they're not maybe a project-based organization, but more a community-based organization, on what they can do to kind of navigate some of the challenges and problems that have been created by having more remote and less in-person opportunities? How about Bill? I'm sorry, you're up on my screen again. Sorry.
Yeah, I think one thing that I have learned from my time leading a group over COVID is that I think regardless of whether you're a student organization that focuses on projects or community, being persistent is super important. Like you have to keep reaching out to new students. You always have to kind of maintain the level of engagement on your side. And if you do that, then after you do it for long enough, you can expect that to kind of come back. So just don't give up. And I think if you're doing community organization, just like host events and maintain that same level of activities, and students will see it and they will appreciate it. And doing something is always better than nothing, even if you can't do I guess like in the global brigades case, if you can't do a physical brigade, I think doing a TeleBrigade is still a really fantastic option.
Daniel, do you have anything you'd want to add to that?
Yeah, I think Ben or Bill put it pretty perfectly. It's all about the work that the leaders put into it, and that trickles down to everybody else. So as long as you have opportunities, show people that there are opportunities to participate, having activities, events, whatever, just anything to show that that you want to engage with people, and then you'll have a certain percentage of people that will engage back. So yeah, Bill hit it right on the head.
Fantastic. And as you may have noticed, our time is coming to an end. And so I just want to very quickly just take a moment to thank both Daniel and Bill for taking the time to join us today. Having insight, I think, from student leaders who are actually navigating this challenging situation in real time is just been fantastic to kind of hear your perspectives. I'd also really like to thank Dino Tino again for creating this opportunity for us to come together, and our marketing staff for continuing to make sure that everything runs smoothly. And finally, I just want to thank everyone who's on the call for spending time with us today. And I really do look forward to hopefully seeing you at the next One McCormick. And even more so, I look forward to being able to see you in the hallowed halls of tech one day soon. So thanks, everybody, and hope you have a great rest of the day. Take care.